So today, let's talk about a band that absolutely defined the sound of the 60s. They launched one of rock's most iconic voices into superstardom, and then they had to watch her walk away, right at the peak of their success. So how did it all go so right, and then so wrong? Let's get into the incredible story of Big Brother and the Holding Company. In 1968, this was the sound that was everywhere. The number one album in America was this raw, supercharged masterpiece of psychedelic rock. I mean, it really captured the feeling of a generation living on the edge. Yep, the album was Cheap Thrills, and the band, of course, was Big Brother and the Holding Company. They were literally on top of the world, defining that wild, electric sound of San Francisco. Which brings us to the big puzzle at the heart of their story, right? How does a band hit number one and then, almost immediately, their legendary lead singer just leaves? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning. To really understand the end, we have to go back to the start, before the fame, before the number one album, and yeah, before a singer named Janis Joplin was even in the picture. We're heading to the super vibrant, kind of chaotic music scene of mid-60s San Francisco. The band's foundation was really built piece by piece. Back in '65, you had the core guitar trio of Albin, Andrew, and Gurley just starting to jam. By early '66, they had a name and a pretty high-profile gig at the legendary Trips Festival. A few months after that, drummer Dave Getz came on board, and that cemented the powerful instrumental lineup that would define their whole early sound. And this poster? It tells you everything you need to know. It shows you just how central they were to that whole San Francisco scene. I mean, they were the house band at the Avalon Ballroom, sharing stages with giants like the Grateful Dead. Their sound was heavy, it was experimental, built on these sprawling improvised guitar jams. They were respected musicians for sure, but they were missing that one crucial element to really break out. They needed a spark. And that spark? Well, it arrived in the form of a powerhouse blues singer all the way from Texas. This is the moment that changed absolutely everything for Big Brother and the Holding Company. You know, what's so fascinating here is how this quote just cuts right through the miss. Guitarist Sam Andrew remembered her arrival not as some lightning bolt from the heavens, but as this gradual process. She was a great singer, no doubt, but she had to learn how to mesh with their incredibly loud, electric, psychedelic sound. It took time. And this was totally a two-way street. As she was learning to just project over their sheer volume, they were learning to play around her voice, and their sound, it completely transformed. Those experimental freeform instrumental jams became tighter, more structured songs. They were evolving from this kind of challenging prog rock into the powerhouse psychedelic blues that was about to make them famous. Okay, so with their new sound finally clicking into place, all they needed was a national stage. And in June of 1967, they got one. Let me tell you, their performance would make them an overnight sensation. And this wasn't just any festival. Monterey Pop was the cultural event of 1967. It was basically the moment the Summer of Love was introduced to the entire world. And right there, in front of this massive audience, Big Brother was about to have their career-defining moment. This quote from Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, it just sums up the reaction perfectly. People were completely blown away. The raw power of Joplin's voice, backed by the band's ferocious energy, was unlike anything the mainstream had ever heard before. They left Monterey with a new manager and a major label record deal with Columbia. Things were happening fast. Now, this next phase, it's their moment of triumph, and at the same time, the beginning of the end. In 1968, the band would release an absolute masterpiece, hit number one, and then fracture, right at the very summit of their success. And you can just see the jump right here. I mean, look at this. Their first album in '67 stalled out at number 60. A year later, their Columbia debut, Cheap Thrills, shot straight to number one and just stayed there for 8 weeks. We're talking about a meteoric rise. By the end of 1968, they truly had it all. A number one album, a massive hit single with Piece of My Heart, and a reputation as one of the most explosive live acts in the entire country. They were at the absolute pinnacle of the music world. So what went wrong? Well, it wasn't just one single thing. It was a whole combination of pressures. Artistically, Janis wanted to explore a more soul-based sound with horns and keyboards, but the band resisted. They wanted to protect their guitar-driven sound. Financially, Well, splitting the money 5 ways was a lot less appealing than a solo career. Their own manager, Albert Grossman, was actually pushing her to leave. And creatively, Joplin just felt like she was stagnating. So in December 1968, she played her last show with the band. But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. Big Brother and the holding company continued long after Janis left, and that leads to this really complicated and often debated legacy in the history of rock and roll. I mean, just look at this timeline. The band released 2 more albums before splitting up in '72, but then they got back together in 1987, and they've been touring and playing ever since with a rotating cast of musicians and singers, keeping that music alive for decades. But their legacy remains a huge point of controversy. Founding guitarist James Gurley really felt they were unfairly criticized, that they never got the credit they deserved for their musical innovation and their arrangements. He believed they were just seen as Janis Joplin's backup band, and that wasn't the whole story. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Were they simply the launching pad for a superstar, a crucial but temporary chapter in the Janis Joplin story? Or were they trailblazing psychedelic rock legends in their own right, unfairly overshadowed by the very voice they helped introduce to the world? It's a debate that, honestly, continues to this day.